as we continue in our look at Matthew, the Gospel of Matthew, last week we considered Jesus having had another episode where the Pharisees took a trip north for a bit of rest and was engaged by a particular woman who sought him out. She was a Gentile woman who sought him out for help with her daughter. And we looked at that and how unusual that was, that she, being a Gentile, would seek out the Jewish Messiah for blessing, and yet that is what she did. And I think one of the points at least that we tried to look at was that in order to receive a blessing, many times you do have to seek it. You have to seek blessing from God. Now, He can't just bless you, that's true. But if you desire a blessing, you should make it known to Him and seek it from Him. The basic lesson here is through that passage where that Jesus came to redeem Israel. But in redeeming Israel, He opened the gates to the Gentiles as well. Now, that truth is one of the most basic and difficult lessons for these disciples, let alone the Pharisees, to understand, because they violated everything they'd been told about what it meant to be the people of God, what it meant to be redeemed. One of Jesus' point was just because they found themselves Jews didn't mean they were necessarily saved or with Christ. So it's a difficult question, and it's one that recurs again and again, not only in the Gospels, but in Paul's epistles as well. And interestingly enough, it's going to continue on today in this next section, which is kind of difficult. And the reason it's difficult is not because it's not clear, it's just why is it here? Okay. And I think I might have discovered at least one truth as to why it might be here. And we'll take a look at that. But I'll read it for you, Matthew 15:29 to 39. It says, Jesus departed from there, where the woman was, and skirted the Sea of Galilee, and went up on the mountain and sat down there. Then great multitudes came to him, having with them the lame, blind, mute, maimed, and many others, and they laid them down at Jesus' feet, and he healed them. So the multitude marveled when they saw the mute speaking, the maimed made whole, the lame walking, and the blind seeing, and glorified the God of Israel. Now Jesus called his disciples to himself, and he said, I have compassion on the multitude, because they have now continued with me 3 days and have nothing to eat. And I do not want to send them away hungry, lest they faint on the way. One of his disciples said to him, where could we get enough food in the wilderness to fill such a great multitude? Jesus said to them, how many loaves do you have? And they said, 7, and a few little fish. So he commanded the multitude to sit down on the ground, and he took the 7 loaves and the fish, and gave thanks, broke them, and gave them to his disciples, and the disciples gave to the multitude. So they all ate, and were filled, and he took up 7 large baskets full of fragments that were left. Now those who ate were 4,000 men, besides women and children. And he sent away the multitude, got into the boat, and came to the region of Magdala. Let's pray. Our Father in God, we have read your word, and we pray that you would give us insight into this, as to how it might influence our own lives. We pray, Lord, that you would encourage our growth as we consider your word this morning. In Jesus' name. Amen. So you might recognize that this seems very familiar, and we just read a very similar account of the chapter earlier, except it's 5,000 instead of 4,000. And there are a lot of questions. Some people think it's just the same account put differently, but because it is different, I'm very likely that that's the case. The interesting thing, I think for a lot of people, is why on earth did the disciples wonder where the food was going to come from when they had just been fed just a short time before? Why is that? And so I think I don't know, it doesn't tell us exactly why, but there's a possibility here. And that has to do with where he was. When it says he departed, skirted the Sea of Galilee, and went up on the mountains and sat down there. It doesn't give us a lot of details, but in all likelihood, this was on the western side of the Sea of Galilee, which is a Gentile region with a capitalist. And so this crowd, very, very likely consisted of Gentiles, just like the woman he just ministered to. And given that, you can see why the disciples, who were at this idea that they were, the special people of God, might wonder as to exactly what's going on here. Why are they receiving the same benefits we receive? And so we'll look at that. But I do believe this is a Gentile crowd of people. And it's also demonstrated when he leaves, he has to take a ship to go to Magdala, which is on the Jewish side of the lake. So, great multitudes, these people brought their lame, their blind, their mute, their maimed, and many others, and they just simply laid them at the feet of Jesus. And they expected that he could do something about them. They had heard these stories, and I think many of them individually had been on the other side and had witnessed many of these things themselves. And the people marveled at the healings as Jesus healed them. Chapter 11, when John's disciples came and asked Jesus whether he was the one to come or whether he should seek another, he said, "Go and tell John the things which you hear and what you see. The blind see, the lame walk, the lepers are cleansed, the deaf hear, the dead are raised up, the poor have the gospel preached to them, and blessed is he who is not offended because of me." Probably referring to John at that particular point. The signs and wonder and works of the kingdom are being done, so, of course I'm the one. Heaven is invading earth. This is what was going on. The response here was that it says they glorified the God of Israel. Now, the attachment of Israel means that this wasn't their normal group, because that's not mentioned earlier with the Jewish crowd. Since they glorified the God of Israel, they were particularly pointing out a God that was not amongst them. This was the God of Israel. The God of Israel indicates a Gentile crowd who understood that the Jewish Messiah's authority must come from that God. So they were a knowledgeable people in that regard. Chapter 4, describing the multitudes in a more general sense, it says Christ's fame went throughout all Syria, and he brought to him all sick people who were afflicted with various diseases and torments, and those who were demon-possessed, epileptics, and paralytics, and he healed them. Great multitudes followed him from Galilee and from the Decapolis, which were a Gentile region, Jerusalem, Judea, and beyond the Jordan. So both Jews and Gentiles had followed his work. He had a testimony of ministering to Gentiles in particular twice. Once the demoniacs from that same region he was in, and then the woman north from Canaan, whose daughter he healed from demon possession. And so at that point he had given a teaching as to the relationship between the Jews and the Gentiles in that regard, and how he was hesitant to minister to this woman. And yet, because of her faith, her knowledge of who he was, and because the promise is included in the covenant promise to the Jews, to the Gentiles as well, that door was open. And so now it's like it's unleashed. And so he comes and purposefully heals these people, delivers them from demon possession. And now he notices that they're hungry, and he had compassion on the multitude, and wanted to feed them before he sent them away, so that they wouldn't faint along the way. And then again, this is the same format as the 5,000 earlier. There was a very limited supply of food in 3 days. They had 7 loaves and 3 fish. Had them sit down, took the food, he blessed it, broke it, and gave it to the disciples, and gave it to the multitude. And they gathered up quite a remainder of what was left over. It says those who ate were 4,000 men, besides women and children. And then he sent them away, having been filled, and got into the boat with his disciples and came to the region of Magdala. So then, why did Matthew include this little episode of healing these people and feeding them the same way he did the earlier group? Given the description that these people were not Jews but Gentiles, Jesus is repeating the same mighty work done for the covenant people for a non-covenanted Gentiles as well. to demonstrate that Gentiles are included in the promise of this covenant, and these are the people to whom the Jews had been supposed to be ministering to their whole history, but had not been. Okay, so this is really what he's doing. He's showing his disciples, okay, you guys have failed, in your history. This is how it's supposed to be done. I'm Messiah. He embodied Israel himself, and he went out and he did minister to these people in the way they were supposed to be ministered to. So again, pretty much the whole race of Jews at this time missed the point of what it meant to be God's elect nation. In Deuteronomy 14, it describes this. It says, "For you are a holy people to the Lord, that is set apart to the Lord your God, and the Lord has chosen you to be a people for himself, a special treasure above all the peoples who are on the face of the earth." Now, if that's the only passage you have, you might think of yourself to be special. All the earth, special treasure, and that's how you encourage little kids, feel special, despite the fact that a lot of times they're not. But how should Israel regard herself as a special treasure? Why did God elect them as his own special holy people, set apart to himself? Was it because as they began to think that they were better than other people? Well, that's obviously not the case for anyone who's ever studied the history of Israel. The point, I think, is rather that to be a holy people unto God, they weren't set apart because they were better or easier to get along with. They were set apart to be a witness to these nations of what a nation who served their God from the heart would look like and be like in such a manner that the other nations would be astounded and seek to replicate this in their own civilizations. That didn't happen. They have the opposite. The Jews began to look at these other things. Hey, I like the way they're doing things, and they began to copy their foreign and false gods. That's what Hosea is writing about in that second chapter. God's disgusted with them. He has set them apart as his own special people to be a witness to the world about what life is like as you obey me, and follow me, and love me. And they didn't do it. They didn't do it. And that lesson just seems to have been very hard for them to learn. Now, God wanted a faithful people to show the world what would happen if they were to love and obey him. In other words, to see holiness as not some weight of bondage to take all the fun out of life, but to see it as a release to live in a joyful sense with yourself, with God, and with other people. Deuteronomy 4:6 again tells us this. Therefore, be careful to observe them, these laws that I have given you, for this is our wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the peoples, who will hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is wise and understanding. That's how it was supposed to be. Administering to these Gentiles, and Jesus was inviting them into his kingdom, and he was showing his disciples, by extension us, what could have happened had Israel been faithful, and that would happen because of his faithfulness to the Father. Jesus' ministry is what Israel's ministry was supposed to have been, but wasn't. It's not, again, expressly doing all these miraculous things and feeding 4,000 people with a few crumbs. It's that by grace, it's utilizing the grace that empowered those miracles. That's just as available to anything you do. It doesn't matter what it might be. It could be healing the sick. It could be encouraging the depressed, engaging in your vocation, certain relational efforts. All these can be infused with God's grace. And when it is, man, things happen beyond your imagination. What could possibly happen? And that's the point I think Jesus was actually trying to make to his disciples. And Matthew, by extension, to the people he was writing for, and by extension to us. So then as we think about this example in our own lives, we can ask ourselves the question, does our collective witness manifest the power and grace of God, the God we claim to represent? Okay. Or is it just words? Our testimony is to be more than a profession of faith. It is to be an example of faith. Just like Israel was called to be, to do in the Old Covenant. John 14, Jesus tells his disciples, "Most assuredly I say to you, he who believes in me, the works that I do, he will do also. And greater works than these he will do, because I go to my Father." We have access to the same grace that Jesus did. Same grace. We should not think that there is anything beyond which God cannot do through us if he so chooses. And we have the power. In Jesus, we have far greater light in that the Messiah has come, died, risen, and lives today. And we are to be baptized into all of that. The law of God is summarized in two basic commandments. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, and you shall love your neighbor as yourself. So loving our neighbor seeks to do them good. And part of doing them good is to warn them against sin, like Hosea did. Mainly as a disposition rather than acts, because it's the disposition that prompts the acts. But not in a way that relishes the hangman's job. Okay? This is a false witness. And you might think of Jonah here. Jonah is a great example of the kind of evangelist you really don't want to be. Okay? And there's so much more to that story that I don't understand. But he went there hoping they were going to not believe him, and just watch God's wrath fall upon him and decimate him. And he was angry when God had mercy on him, when they repented. This is amazing, to think about. And where was I? Lost track here. But anyway, that's the wrong way to present even the truth of the gospel of Christ. Rather, the way you should present it is like a good nurse caring for her patient, or like a mother caring for her child, like Jesus having compassion on these people. Now, you want them to repent. You want them to see their lives turned around and begin to change and begin to do good things. And so we are to have compassion on the people we seek to witness to, even seek to remind them of the consequence of their sin. You think of the parable of the tax collector in Luke 18, and the Pharisee. Well, the Pharisee was praying, "God, I thank thee that I am not like other men, extortioners, unjust, adulterers, or even this tax collector." That's a pretty brazen thing for a fallen person to be praying. And Jesus said the tax collector went home justified. He couldn't even stand to think of himself. This Pharisee thought he'd arrived. So it's not the Pharisaical way. It's rather the way that Jesus demonstrated for us in the way of the cross. He said in John 12, "If I am lifted up from the earth," which is referring to the cross, "I will draw all people to myself." And that's the same with us as we follow Jesus. Our lives should be magnets, drawing people to truth and Jesus, even in the context of suffering. The difference between evangelism as professing words and evangelism as possessing the truth of those words, like Paul and Silas, as we read about, as they were evangelizing in jail. This is it's easy to read these passages, and I've read this passage for 50 years now. When you think about what happened, they were just going about doing the right thing. And by God, they had a consequence that people didn't like, and they not only threw them in prison, they beat them. I never been beaten like that. I know it's a very gruesome experience to have, very painful. Yeah. None of that took away the joy they had in Christ. Isn't that incredible? I find that incredible. Because I feel my life can be pretty miserable. And I can get pretty unjoyful about it all, But, they were evangelizing people in the jail, At midnight, Paul and Silas were praying and singing hymns to God, and the prisoners were listening to them. It wasn't just that they were giving them the four spiritual laws. They were demonstrating what life is like after you just had the tar beaten out of you, if you had Christ as your Savior and Lord. That's pretty amazing. Usually when you experience injustice, and they did, bitterness is the natural result, not joy. And yet it was joy. Why is that? It was because of the God they serve. Why wouldn't that attract you? And it did. it's incredible to think about that. But that's something that is not exclusive to Paul and Silas. Any Christian has access to that grace. Okay, you can read church history and you can find other examples of this. So our attitude is not to be dictated by our circumstances, for there are no circumstances that we can face without Jesus. So again, you think that this current crisis we are in with the COVID-19 and the government overreach, which most of us here are more worried about than COVID-19, the economic shutdown, the consequences of this. Does this not mean we don't care about these things? Of course we care about them. Or that we don't fight against them? Well, of course we try to fight against them to the degree we can. But we do these things without losing our love and our joy, and that's the challenge. Because believe me, I can get pretty miserable thinking about what's going on. I wish I were a better example, because I really do. But you know, I didn't come to this awareness until fairly late in my life, and nearly like 50 years worth of crud to try to work through. And this is amazing to think about this. To do this, to fight the fight, the good fight, to stand for the truth without losing your love for the people you're talking to or your joy in Christ. Not be dominated by worry or fear or doubt or hatred. Okay, this is what you see. I mean, I've seen my own life. I don't have to point to anybody else. I see this here. You know, I get. You know, you hear these things, you get afraid. You know, you forget who you belong to. You get worried. Our lives really are our witness to this world. Okay, we are to witness to the fact that what we say is true. That Jesus truly has conquered death and invited us to enter the joy of His presence forever. This will never be more clearly illustrated than our living out that calling amidst the horrors of a fallen and rebellious world. Such is our pleasure and our joy in following Christ. Our world will not be redeemed by force of arms or even the power of persuasion. It will be redeemed by being turned inside out and right side up by the grace of the living God as He manifests Himself through us. That's our calling. So, let's pray. Our Father God, we thank You for another episode in the life of Jesus, our Savior and Lord. We just pray that we would imbibe these, whatever was said that was true, and forget that which was false. We just thank You, Lord God, for Your presence with us and for You minister to us as we prepare ourselves for another week to live apart from one another. Again, we thank You in Jesus'